I guess we'll go ahead and get started. All right. Good morning. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining DataCon LA 2021. Welcome to this session track, Business Intelligence, Reporting, and Business Use Cases. My name is Courtney Fowler, and I'm your host today. Our co-host today is Mirali. She'll be joining us later. We'll be moderating the chat and Q&A during the session. Today we have our guest, Roman Stanek. Roman is the CEO and founder of GoodData. Roman has been a veteran data expert working with massive organizations to help them design and deliver customer-centric data that enables better decision-making. During his talk, we'll break down how cloud-native infrastructure changes a company, how to implement it, and the impact it has on data literacy and adoption. So again, without further ado, we'll go ahead and welcome Roman Stanek and enjoy your presentation.
Excellent, thank you. And good morning, everyone. Again, Roman Stanek, founder, CEO of GoodData. And, let me actually start with a little bit of history. How did we get here? What's actually, where does the business intelligence industry come from? And if you look at BI 10 years ago, it was very much an IT domain. It was managed by central IT companies like Cognos, MicroStrategy, Business Objects, ruling the world. And obviously, it was not optimal. We may remember PDF reports into the whole company. Essentially, the central IT team decided what is what's the meaning of the data? What do we mean by customer? What do we mean by prospect, and so on? And that didn't work. There was not enough flexibility and agility. So in order to change that and get more agility and ability for business people to make their own decisions, we moved to the other extreme where today business intelligence is mostly monolithic, kind of self-contained personal productivity tool like Power BI, Tableau, and Click, and that's not good either. It leads to duplication. It leads to many versions of the same data, of the same report, and so on. So we have to get to a better place, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. How do we actually align the needs of business and the needs of IT so that we get trusted, governed, real-time data to everyone? And maybe this kind of the picture that I had on my last slide was okay 10 years ago or 5 years ago, but at this moment there's so much innovation in data. There are so many new data sources being available, and yet this slide comes from Gartner. Only 5% of the population of the company really has access to real-time data. These are the technology producers in IT and analytics departments. They actually have access to data warehouses and data lakes and so on. And they can actually build pipelines. They can actually build reliable data sources, but it's only 5% of the population of the company. And everyone else is left with this picture. Everyone else is left with copies and data copies and staging areas and extracts and imports and duplications. There are no consistent business rules. Every business user is defining their own meaning of data. They all rely on offline data extracts. It's so slow, and there's no real-time data. It's not cloud native. It's all desktop based. And many of these applications are really legacy applications. So we went from a bad situation where IT controlled everything, and we had one PDF file for the whole company. Now we are in a situation where everyone has some copy of data. This is not governed. This is not trusted, and we all are looking at different numbers. So how can we actually change it? What can we do? And is it gonna get better? So let's take a look at first, what actually means to share data in a company and consume data in a company. And as you can see, there are so many new ways how to produce and consume data. There are obviously, dashboards and desktop BI tools, but you have new location insight companies, the data notebooks, data science tools. You can email, insights. You can do self-service data discovery. You can even export data into Excel. And all of these kind of approaches have one big downside. They actually on every single of these squares or rectangles, the data is being massaged and designed and interpreted and modeled separately. So my dashboards will have fundamentally different numbers than my data science tools, because people look at data differently and they will do a different model, different semantic view of the data, and so on. So that's kind of, as we are kind of increasing the number of tools that get data to the right audiences, we actually are increasing the problem by having way too many versions of the truth. And so this is kind of the same picture in more kind of architectural slides. So as you can see, the company, typical company will spend a lot of money on getting all the data sources aligned and integrated and normalized in data lake and data warehouse, and lots of kind of data cleansing goes into that. And then we actually move data into 5 different tools. And these tools will actually do the model, do the calculations, and they will come up with different numbers. And then 5 people will come to the same meeting, and they will have different data. So that's the problem. That's the problem. So it's not real time. It's duplicative. It's getting worse as we are getting more and more application like this, and it's gonna get much worse as we will have more people with mobile devices and applications that consume data and so on. So what can we do? So we have to actually the goal should be to build the right data culture, and the goal needs to be to empower people to make decisions, but they need to get the data they actually need at the right time. And so we have to stop this kind of this practice of exporting data, overloading people with too much data, with too many data sets and so on. We have to actually give them the data they need at the right time, and we actually have to give them the right scope of data so they can make the decision. So again, more data dumping on the whole database is not really the way we should be doing it anymore. And so the way we actually, the industry is now approaching is to create what's called Headless BI. And Headless BI is actually an interesting concept. It's essentially an oxymoron. If you think about it, how can a visual industry like BI and visual activity, how it can be actually headless? Headless means no UI. And yet, by making BI headless, we can solve many of these problems. So what we need to do, we actually need to decouple the creation of insights and calculation of insights and semantic model and governance and so on. We actually need to decouple it from the UI and access and actually the discovery and so on. It needs to be decoupled. And so, as you can see, instead of giving everyone either a copy of data or giving them their own tool, we are creating an infrastructure, a single source of metrics infrastructure that lives in the cloud, that does all the calculation, that governs the data, that creates a business meaning. That's what semantic model means, business meaning. Instead of dealing with indexes and columns and so on, we are dealing with revenue and margins and attribution and so on. So we are creating this kind of business perspective, real-time business perspective, and we are making this real-time business perspective available as a set of APIs. And so that's obviously only step one. No one can consume APIs. APIs are for machines only, but we can now actually connect the traditional BI tools to these APIs. So now every user of Tableau, Power BI, Excel, Click can get the right business data in the right form, with the right interpretation and model and so on, and they can slice and dice it more. But if they look at company revenue, they will get the right data. They will get the right cleanse and model data. And if we give, so that's one way how to consume data. And that's obviously not enough. We have to give more users access to data, but this kind of APIs first approach gives us that ability. So we can actually go and build a mobile application, embedded BI, web applications, portals. There may be 10 times as many users as users of Power BI or Tableau using these embedded applications in their workflows, in their processes, in their applications. This is where we can actually create this managed access to data that works for, again, embedded in all of the applications and embedded in all of the portals. But we will not stop there. We can actually go and build a access for data science tools. Data scientists spend 80% of their time trying to get to clean data so they can actually work on it. So obviously, anyone using the Jupyter notebook and so on, they can actually go and get govern data from our data lake, and they can massage it and do predictions and combine it and so on. But they will be working with the same business definition. So if they want to look at data for sales, they will actually get data for sales. If they want to do data for marketing, they will get marketing data via the APIs. They will not get columns and indexes, because then they would have to remodel it and they will get to different numbers. And the last one, which is actually very interesting and not so well known, way how to access data, is to do what's called reverse ETL. Once we have data in a kind of a cleansed and synchronized fashion, we can then export it and load it back to the systems, original system. So I can take data out of my help desk system like Freshdesk, and I can load it into my CRM system like Salesforce. And I can use the Headless BI as the way how to actually cleanse it and get to the same numbers and get to the same insight. So as you can see, this kind of single source of metrics can become kind of the centralized and yet flexible a real-time source of governed data, and we can move away from copying data out of data warehouse. We can actually move away from building different types of data lakes, and then still everyone to get their own version of a CSV file. So this is the main idea behind Headless BI, is this notion of decoupling insights from the semantic model. So I can have one semantic model for the whole company. I can have one semantic model for one department. I can have the semantic model for some domain like sales and marketing and so on. So we are not going back to the world of IT controlling everything and PDF files, static dashboards, and so on. All these APIs are real time and always available. But we can also have have the kind of the trust and governance and alignment at the same time as flexibility, choice of tools, and so on. So let's take a look at how does it get actually built, and what is needed in this new model, because clearly this is a fundamentally different model than old BI. So first of all, we need what's called a Headless BI engine. So Headless BI engine is an engine that is not visual, that there's no UI. It's an engine that essentially integrates data, builds the semantic view, calculates all of the metrics, creates direct queries into data warehouses like Snowflake, Vertica, Amazon Redshift, and does, this Headless BI engine does more than the typical BI application like Tableau and Power BI would actually do, because this engine needs to make sure that the data is trusted and it's also governed. So that's why you see, for the first time in BI, we are now talking about integration with lifecycle management. We have to be able to version our metrics. We have to, if the whole company relies on certain metric, then we have to be able to make sure that this metric has high quality, that it has been tested. When we make changes, we can actually see what changes we made. If that change was not a good change, we have to roll it back. So integration with lifecycle management is absolutely critical. And we will be talking more and more about the whole lifecycle management, metrics definitions, how to write metrics declaratively. How can we make sure that the same metric works in Snowflake and Apache Spark? How do we make sure that the metric can actually won't break if our business changes and so on? So this whole concept of metrics is kind of a central focus of Headless BI. And that's why you see lifecycle management and governance on this slide. The next big integration is obviously security. If we are exposing our data and insights as APIs to the whole company, we have to make sure that everyone has access to the right data. There's strict security. And obviously, this approach of managing data as an API is much more secure than emailing files, emailing CSV files, emailing Excel files, and so on. Here we can actually make sure that everyone gets the right data. We can actually switch on and switch off access. We can do everything that's necessary to make data secure and safe. The two key integrations are integrations with data sources, federated data sources, single sources, structured, augmented. It doesn't really matter. That's kind of the fundamental principle of Headless BI, is that all of these data sources get integrated into one semantic model, and then UI integrations, and we will talk about that, or I will talk about it a little later. So that's the functionality of Headless Engine. The Headless Engine becomes kind of the central source of metric for the whole company, and because it's being used by everyone, not just by BI analyst, it's being used by all of the portals and embedded applications and reverse ETL and so on. It has to have the SLAs and performance and reliability of any other operational system. BI used to be kind of nice to have. If the dashboard is down, someone can have coffee and come back later. But now we have an engine that actually drives the whole company. Every application gets some information from this engine. So that's why it has to be hosted in a highly available cloud-based architecture with modern tooling like Kubernetes and Terraform and Helm and so on, because the requirements for uptime and reliability are fundamentally different than the traditional BI. So that's kind of the first step. So the first step is have this engine in place, have the kind of all of data integrated, have the data sets available as APIs in some sort of a modern way. And the second step is to create all of the business meaning that will actually where we can actually go and see, as you can see on this slide, where we can actually go and see revenue 500 and not 600 and so on, 100 and so on. So we have to actually be able to model the data, and we have to be able to model the revenue dimension. Is it revenue by product? Is it revenue by sales rep? Is it revenue by customer? Is it revenue by month? And so on. So all these things need to be modeled so that we can actually flexibly interact with the data. We need code generation so that we can actually go and build all these access mechanisms like JavaScript and Python and so on. And we need very kind of flexible and very easy to understand APIs, because we are decoupling the business logic from UI. So now we are getting to the last step, and that's probably the most visible step. This is where we are no longer talking about Headless BI. We are talking about composable analytics. We are talking about ways how to create new BI application and kind of analytics applications. And as you can see, this is not this is essentially low-code JavaScript kind of exercise. So we are not talking about tens of thousands lines of code like the traditional BI tooling, because we are exposing already these kind of pre-built metrics and pre-built dimensions and everything in our APIs. I can actually create that pie chart that you see on the left side, the traffic accidents causes. I can create it in, as you can see it on the right side, in 12 lines of code. I can essentially grab the semantic model. I can decide what is my visualization, how I want to kind of render it, and it's literally 12 lines of code. And that's kind of this low code, no code approach to analytics. That's gonna be ultimately the biggest benefit of the Headless BI. The fact that we will have high degree of reuse, that we will have these APIs available, and then anyone can write a very kind of dynamic and rich applications with few lines of either JavaScript or some other low code, no code application. You can also embed it, as you can see on lower left. You can actually go and create different types of embedding from this visual. So I can actually put it into my application. I can put it into my portal. I can make it part of my workflow. So all of this is possible, and as you can see, no calculation, no data is actually moved into the browser. All of the calculation happens in the cloud, in the kind of Headless BI engine, and all we are doing here is that we are getting some objects from the server, and these objects are my revenue. Here it's some causes of data traffic accident, or another one is on the right side, rental amount per month, and so on. So these are business essentially, business APIs that allow us to query business insights, and not some SQL and not some kind of a technical infrastructure. And so that's kind of just the beginning. The last slide, when I had one pie chart embedded in my application, that's just the beginning, what the kind of Headless BI will actually do. You can imagine that over time, we'll create lots of these kind of headless engines, and they will have different types of functionality. They will have different types of semantic models, modeling different parts of company. So I can imagine, and this is where the industry going. And according to Gartner, this is future of BI. On this slide, where I can actually take highly reusable components. Gartner calls them, it's an awful name, Gartner calls them package business PBCs, package business components. I would actually call them kind of Headless BI API. So I can have one for dashboards, I can have one for interactive visualizations, data prep, modeling, and so on. And then with low code, no code tool, we can create a new application that will reduce customer churn, or we can actually create very easily application that will help with campaigns and sales and so on. And again, the benefit here is consistency. All of these objects are using the same kind of Headless BI API, so there's no remodeling and reinterpretation of data. And the second thing is that we actually get high degree of productivity, because we are talking about we have all of these kind of new workflows that you see, the one, top, middle, and bottom, are all few lines of low-code integration code. So from the productivity perspective, this is so much better than redesign these applications from the scratch and getting to 5 different results. So what will be required? So we have a new vision. The industry is a new kind of is going in a completely different direction. Instead of creating new tools for new activity, now we are creating one kind of headless, invisible BI engine that can do many things, and then we are actually combining with different types of applications, different types of UIs, different types of low code, no code tools. This will create actually need for fundamentally different skills in BI. I would actually say that until now, BI was an island. All you needed to know was kind of some fundamentals of modeling, maybe some SQL, a lot of Excel kind of functionality, and that was it. As you can see, this kind of API first architecture expands these requirements into new UI skills, that people who will design these new applications, integration skills, core skills like ability to design these kind of new workflows and so on, and a lot of new skills in integration, APIs, API management, security, service orchestrations, because we will be orchestrating these new workflows. So BI will kind of stop being an island. It will stop being a kind of a personal productivity tool like Excel, and it will become a piece of modern architecture in kind of in a very flexible way. And I will actually this is my last slide, and I want to kind of mention one of the quotes that Gartner uses, and I like it a lot. And that is that it used to be risky to make changes. This is why BI, 10 years ago, it was risky to make change, and you made change to your report every 5 years or every 5 months. Today, it's actually risky not to make changes, and so we have to get into an environment we can safely and securely make changes to our data, to our insights, to the way we actually are deploying and building and testing BI. And kind of the cloud native and headless BI is the most flexible framework today, and that's where the industry is going. So in the future, what's coming next? So once we actually, this will be a decade of transition again from this kind of isolated central IT and business user frameworks. We believe that the future belongs to kind of a more integrated, all the way from IT to business users, and all these new headless BI applications, APIs, and so on will be available to business technologists, people who can actually span IT and business, and we will have analytics will finally go from BI will finally go from penetration of 5% to maybe 25%, maybe 50%, and hopefully one day we will get to 100% penetration of BI. But it will have to be something fundamentally different than what people use today. Thank you. So Courtney, I wanted to open this to questions. If you have any questions from the audience, we have time for Q&A.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that presentation. It was a great session. Let me check in the Q&A and the chat if there's anything.
There are no questions.
Yeah, looks a bit sparse right now, right? Looks like may have over-explained or might be a little bit too early for the attendees right now to be that engaged for, right?
Okay.
I guess my biggest question,
Yep.
I think there was one thing I saw kind of like in your presentation, looking at trying to kind of build like data literacy and the thought of BI at every level within a corporation. Is there any comment you have to that and how this can kind of help with that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's essentially by creating this kind of let me go to the kind of the right slide. If we can actually create APIs that allow every single one of these applications to go and kind of get the data that's already has been governed and modeled and so on, it will actually create trust in data. So, and everyone can actually pick kind of the level of complexity and level of technology they want to go to. So, and if I'm a CEO of a company, I will probably go to my dashboards, but I want to trust the dashboards. I don't want to see a dashboard that tells me something else than my BI desktop tool. And if I get my scheduled email, it's going to have a different number. So by increasing the trust in data and by kind of making the data kind of data process less onerous, because I don't need to go and get a copy of file and massage it and model it and so on. I can just grab some API from some API, some view of my sales data, and build a data science notebook. So it's kind of I do believe that it will make data more trusted, more governed, more kind of give people more variety of tools. Ultimately, most people will actually consume data as part of some embedded application. I always say that my favorite BI tool is like, or example of BI of the future is like the homepage of Uber mobile app. Where you go there and you see the cars and you see how long it's going to take to get to you, and who is available and what cars are available. Imagine that you would have to download a CSV file with all Uber drivers, and you have to put it into your Tableau, and you would have to say, well, this column is a driver and this column is a distance, and this time is a cost, and I need to do some analytics and so on, and I will find that this one is the best. Why would I do that? Why would I not rely on some embedded application to actually do it for me? And so that's kind of the future. The future is that these applications, these many applications, will actually be much smarter. They will be much more real time, and we will not need to go and download a CSV file and fight with it, because it will be embedded into applications the way BI is embedded into Uber ordering, and no one calls it BI. So that's kind of the literacy. That's kind of making it less onerous, less kind of hard work, and more enjoyable just to go and interact with the data.
That's true. This is Murli, Roman. Yes, you rightly said BI should be very outcome-driven, decision-driven. My question is, where has the name Headless BI or the concept Headless BI come from?
It comes from kind of this comes from first of all, almost every industry now is becoming headless. There's a headless CRM, there's headless e-commerce, there's headless CSS, content management system, CMS, and so on. So there are so many headless. There's a headless search, like where you don't have UI, you only have API. So this kind of API first is becoming kind of trend in every industry.
Yes.
And it really kind of comes from this, and Gartner calls it API-centric, we call it API first, and so on. But it really comes from this slide, that you have 5 people walking into the room, and they all have this different numbers. And why? Because they all took the same data, but they applied different models and different meaning. And for me, customer is something that has been already signed, and for you is a customer who is in the sales pipeline and so on. And now we have different numbers, and we cannot agree on what it is, because we use different tools. So when we actually kind of take these meanings of data out of these tools, and we create kind of the API first approach, where you and I can go both to the same API and say, well, give us the customers, then we will actually have a better way how to share data. So it's all about kind of taking the process of modeling and data interpretation out of the individual tools, monolithic tools, into kind of a shared infrastructure with APIs.
Roman, I have 2 questions from. The first question is from Naga Donikena. He asks, who drives API-driven BI, business or IT?
That's a very good question. I think it's IT. It has to be IT. Because it's API. Business have no idea what API is. And if you ask me who needs to do it, it's these 5 people, 5% of people who actually are in data analytics departments in IT, people who do have access to the snowflakes and data lakes and so on. They need to adopt it, and they need to see it as the way how to get insights to 95% organization. But yeah, that's a very good question. I actually think it's a fundamental question, who drives it, because until now, BI was driven by business people. You go, you download your Tableau, you install it, you download your Excel, And that led to all of this chaos. So now it has to be driven by IT, but it cannot be going. We cannot go back to the world of business objects. We cannot go back to shared PDF files. We have to go to this kind of a separation where IT does all of this, and then business can use whatever tools they want to use.
Okay. The second question from Naga Donikena is, for a successful implementation, who would be in a better position to lead the effort?
Yeah, I actually think that, Gartner has a very interesting term, and I think we will hear it more and more. They have a term or expression called fusion teams. And I actually think that we cannot look at it as IT, versus business and so on. The whole concept of fusion team is that you put a team together that has a data scientist, a data engineer, a data analyst who can model data, some business people. And so if I go back to this kind of, my almost last slide, if I go there, you see kind of this new level of expertise you need to build like embedded application in JavaScript. It's not a business person who can actually write a lot of JavaScript and so on. So the fusion team is kind of the team of people who put this together and they can successfully implement it.
Okay. Awesome. So how old is this product?
I'm sorry?
How old is this product?
This is not a new product. Actually, yeah. Let me actually. The concept of API first, headless is not that new. That's how you scale and so on. What is actually new, and this new product is kind of new GoodData product that's about 6 months old. What's new about it is it's all cloud native, as you can see. It runs in Docker, it runs on AWS, Azure, Kubernetes, and so on. So that's the first thing, and so that's kind of the first innovation. But the second innovation is actually on this slide. And it's kind of how do you actually, once you build that single source of metrics, how do you integrate, enable these other applications? All of the APIs, the SDKs, code generations. I want to use my Python tool. I should be able to go to GoodData and say, hey, give me my Python definition for all sales objects in GoodData, and I will get it. Give me my JavaScript interface for my user applications, ODBCs and so on. So there's a lot of integration because we are now decoupling BI and turning it into kind of more like a service-oriented architecture. We call it data as a service. That means that we have to put more emphasis in this kind of integration, APIs, SDKs, and so on. And that's new in our product. This is actually what we are adding and launching and so on.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Good concepts. Good forward thinking. I myself come from a BI background, so I'm going to look and do a little more research, and probably going to reach out to you on LinkedIn.
Yeah, you should. You definitely should. And it's and maybe the last thing I want to go is what is the biggest benefit is this kind of productivity and reuse. That's if anyone who spent any time in BI, the fact that I can take 10 lines of JavaScript and create a new dashboard because I'm not coding, I'm not writing SQL, I'm not doing kind of where clauses and so on. I'm only doing like, hey, give me my rental information for the last month and put it on this dashboard. That's kind of the main thing. Is the reuse, the consistency, security. It's a fundamentally better way how to do BI.
Thank you. Courtney, take it over.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks, Riley. Hey, Roman, I appreciate everything. If there's, think we got like another minute left, and I'm gonna go ahead and thank you, Roman, again for your presentation, and of course the attendees for their questions during the session. Right. If you'd like to, of course, you can contact Roman directly if there is any further question regarding this topic. And again, please provide feedback. I'm going to leave a link here in the chat. Just going to send it right now. So if you guys have any feedback, comments, anything else you'd like to kind of do for insights of this presentation in this session or DataCon 2021 as a whole, please drop it into the form attached to the chat. So Again, guys, thank you for joining into our session today. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for being part of this year's DataCon LA.
Excellent. Thank you all. Thanks.
Take care.
Bye-bye.